and welcome. Tonight, it's a political tsunami. That's according to Vice President Kashim Shettima as he formally received the Delta State Governor, Sheriff Oborevwori, his predecessor, Ifeanyi Okowa, and others into the fold of the All Progressives Congress. House of Representatives optimistic that political parties' bill, which seeks to reduce intra-party crisis, will be a signature achievement for the 10th Assembly when eventually passed into law. At least 4 persons are dead following an explosion at an illegal crude oil storage and processing site in Nomoko in Rivers State. And Russian President Vladimir Putin announces May 8 to 11th as temporary ceasefire in Ukraine, which coincides with victory celebrations to mark the end of World War II.
And on business, Nigeria's non-oil exports record strong growth. It's $1.79 billion in the first quarter of 2025.
On sports news tonight, newly crowned Premier League champions Liverpool announced they will celebrate their title triumph with a 15-kilometer trophy parade around the city on Monday, May 26th.
And from the nation's capital, court sentences husband of late gospel singer Osinachi to death by hanging after he was found guilty of culpable homicide, resulting in the singer's death in April 2022.
Call it a period of political decision-making for some politicians, and you might not be wrong. So tonight, we begin with the latest defection, which is now official. The governor of Delta State, Sheriff Oborevwori, the former governor of Delta State, Ifeanyi Okowa, and of course other major political stakeholders in the state have formally defected to the All Progressives Congress, the APC, in what the Vice President Kashim Shettima has described as a political tsunami. The defectors were officially received into the party by chieftains of the ruling All Progressives Congress, including Vice President Kashim Shettima, the party's national chairman Abdullahi Ganduje, Senator Adams Oshiomhole, Governor Hope Uzodinma of Imo State, who is also the chairman of the Progressive Governors Forum, among other political bigwigs.
The event bears all the hallmarks of a high-level defection. The atmosphere is carnival-like as the cenotaph in Asaba, the Delta State capital, overflows with a large crowd, mostly dressed in yellow. Vice President Kashim Shettima headlines a prominent gathering which includes APC governors, key National Assembly members, and the top leadership of the ruling APC.
I want to thank you. Thank my brother governor.
The tone is set by the chairman of the Progressives Governors Forum and governor of Imo State, Hope Uzodinma.
Both the federal and subnational governments are sufficiently represented here. We have even SSA political, Alhaji Ibrahim Masari, Waziri Katsina in our midst. So the party is complete. The government is complete, ably led by our leader, the Vice President.
The main event then unfolds. Former Delta State Governor Dr. Ifeanyi Okowa officially joins the APC.
I've been with you for so long. I would rather sacrifice everything that is in me for the best interest of Delta. And that decision that our governor took, that we needed to move after consultation with the leaders of the party, which was cascaded down to the local governments and the world. Let us go back home and let the people know that we are taking this decision in their best interest. God bless you all. APC!
Now it is my honor and privilege to hand over this flag and our symbol, the broom, to this great man who has now come into our great party APC.
Then comes the high point of the day, the culmination of what is being described as one of the most significant defections in recent memory. Governor Sheriff Oborevwori officially joins the APC.
Ladies and gentlemen, we are not Kobona. Are you Kobona? This is data. Data cannot carry last. We have been in opposition for almost 10 years. Do we need that? Mr. President has supported us. He has shown us love. We cannot face him in 2027 to work against him. That love that he has shown to us in Delta State, we need to reciprocate it. We cannot do it in our own party. You have to be inside to do it, and to do it well.
Last but certainly not least is none other than Vice President Kashim Shettima.
What testimony could be greater than the promise of this day? A political tsunami of unimaginable proportion that has never happened in the history of the South region, and barely in the history of this country. A tsunami of this proportion had never happened. All the members of the upper chamber of the National Assembly are in the APC. The Speaker and all the members of the House of Assembly. So many members of the House of Representatives. The Governor and his entire cabinet and 500 councillors across the 25 local government areas of this great state. What testimony do you have greater than this?
This event undoubtedly marks a significant shift, not just in the political dynamics of Delta State and the South-South region, but also at the national level, as the All Progressives Congress and its political rivals continue to strategize for the 2027 general elections.
Allow us produce the successor to President Bola Tinubu. Well, that's coming from the Association of Former Members of the All Nigeria People's Party in the All Progressives Congress ahead of the 2027 presidential election. Addressing a news conference in Abuja, the national coordinator of the association, Professor Vitalis Ajumbe, says that out of the three major political parties that formed the ruling All Progressives Congress, only the ANPP is yet to produce a president. According to the association, while the Congress for Progressive Change produced the former President Muhammadu Buhari, the Action Congress of Nigeria bloc produced President Buhari Tinubu.
Three political parties formed APC, ANPP, CPC, and ACN. CPC bloc took the first shot through Buhari, who served for 8 years. By hard work, ACN is now occupying the office through Mr. President Tinubu. And by the time Tinubu will be leaving office in 2031, we believe and we think that naturally, by justice, it will be the turn of ANPP to produce the president when the power will now move to the north.
And still on politics, the Speaker of the House of Representatives, Tajuddin Abbas, is optimistic that the political parties bill, which has passed second reading in the House of Representatives, when passed into law, will be a signature achievement for the 10th Assembly, just the way the Not Too Young to Run bill was for the 9th Assembly. The Speaker gave this position at the technical workshop for members of the House Committee on Political Party Matters in Abuja, where he was represented by Mr. Ishaya Lalu.
Thank you very much. The Chairman, House Committee on Political Parties and other members of the committee are attending this workshop in Abuja to brainstorm on the bill before conducting public hearing. The political parties bill seeks to enhance the operational mechanism of political parties in Nigeria a law that the lawmakers hope will help to reduce inter-party crisis and minimize corruption.
Most of the times, one of the challenges we have in this democracy is the role of the political parties, where candidates are emerging during primaries. Without proper regulation, we have seen a lot of crises. And since we are trying to improve on our democracy, this bill is very, very important. Okay.
Other participants also underscored the importance of the bill and the need for lawmakers to consider the overall interest of citizens.
And so as we reflect on this bill, it is important that we consider the progressive parts of this bill. That the bill in itself may not be perfect, but this bill is desirable. It is desirable because it will reform our party system.
This call for regular constitutional and electoral act amendment to correct the lapses and the ongoing constitutional and electoral review is yet another opportunity to rectify the flaws, thus strengthening our hard-earned democracy.
Your palms are not yet hurting. Thank you.
The representative of the Speaker of the House of Representatives is optimistic that the bill, when passed into law, will be a legacy achievement for the 10th Assembly.
This is a very important day in the life of the 10th Assembly because we have it that this particular bill will serve as one of our signature of the 10th Assembly House of Reps by the grace of God. Just as the not too young to run become a signature of the 8th Assembly.
The political parties bill seeks to address issues of registration, regulation and funding of political parties in Nigeria, functions many hope will help to enhance the operations of political parties in the country.
But one more thing the Speaker of the House of Representatives, Tajuddin Abbas, is pushing for is democratic inclusiveness in Nigeria, while highlighting that Nigeria's democracy must be measured by how much the critical stakeholders in the nation are involved in the process. The Speaker emphasized the importance of the youth population and the internet to democracy. He was speaking at an engagement with social media influencers in Abuja.
The Speaker of the House of Representatives hosts some social media influencers at the National Assembly for an event tagged the Speaker's New Media Exchange. Recognizing the role and importance of social media to governance and development, the event is themed Smart Cities and Ethical Media, Navigating the Role of Policy in National Development.
I think we should strengthen the collaboration between the National Assembly, government agencies and media organizations and civil society to tackle fake news. And this event that the Speaker has put together is a very good start.
If you want to develop Nigeria, you have a role to play with what you put out to the rest of the world. National development is not only when we come out with a strategic plan for infrastructure, for health, for road and all of that. No.
In his address to declare the event open, the Speaker highlights the importance of inclusion to democracy.
The House is pursuing reforms that foreground the rights of persons living with disabilities, promote the inclusion of marginal communities, and advance the political participation of women through constitutional amendment processes. Our democracy must be measured not merely by its procedures, but by its inclusiveness.
He reiterates the need for a better approach to addressing internet crimes.
We are not unmindful of the challenges posed by misinformation, digital security threats, and the misuse of online platforms. Nonetheless, our approach shall remain rooted in dialogue, education, and constructive engagement, rather than censorship or coercion.
The discussion segment on national change is hosted by Channels Television's Coyote Okikiolu.
Some will say, we have enough laws already, all right? We keep churning out new laws that deal with the same thing over and over again. So two things. The new constitution is that when we'll then get a national statement, the purpose of our nation, and then the regulation for social media and perhaps any other point.
amendments can be made. And if we have amendments that's more than 50% of what we currently have, it's like having a brand new constitution that's become a repeal.
We cannot leave the social media space just without regulation. It is not possible. The truth is, some of us speak today on social media, not because we like to speak, but because we know that the misinformation that we allow to thrive today will become the fact that our children will know tomorrow, even though they are not the truth.
This engagement provides a platform for a critical reflection on the intersection of governance, innovation, and responsible communication. Terry Ikumi, Channels Television News.
In part two, after the break, at least 4 persons are dead following an explosion at an illegal crude oil storage and processing site in Omoku in Rivers State. Please join us again. Welcome back. If you've just joined us, you're watching the news at 10 on Channels Television, reaching you live from Lagos. A reminder of our main stories. It's a political tsunami, that's according to Vice President Kashim Shettima, as he formally receives the Delta State Governor Sheriff Oborowori, his predecessor Ifeanyi Okowa, and others into the fold of the All Progressives Congress. House of Representatives optimistic that the political party's bill, which seeks to reduce intra-party crisis, will be a signature achievement for the 10th Assembly when eventually passed into law. At least 4 persons are dead following an explosion at an illegal crude oil storage and processing site in Omoku in Rivers State. And Russian President Vladimir Putin announces May 8th to 11th a temporary ceasefire in Ukraine, which coincides with victory celebrations to mark the end of World War II. And on a sad note, an explosion at an illegal crude oil storage and processing site in Omoku town in Rivers State has claimed the lives of at least 4 people, including a child. Confirming the incident, which occurred over the weekend in Oba Egbema Ndoni local government area of the state, the commander of the local security outfit called OSPAC, who says the bodies have now been buried, gave a stern warning to all who take part in illicit crude oil bunkering.
It's a calm facade here in Omoku, headquarters of Oba Egbema Ndoni local government area of Rivers State. This, however, belies a sad incident of an explosion which occurred here over the weekend. 4 people reportedly lost their lives when a facility used for storage of illegally refined crude oil, better known as fire, exploded, destroying the building with it.
Yes. It's not just ordinary fire. You know, when the gas...
The commander of the local vigilante, known as OSPAC, takes my team and I to the site, where he paints a gory picture of the incident.
Okay, with our investigation, we find out that these persons that were found dead here was pouring this fire into Ragolu's can. And the person that used to bring this fire to them here to pour inside the can came through this way. And somebody by the side, by the corner there, is cooking. At this kitchen.
Somewhere here?
Yes, this is the kitchen.
Okay.
Okay.
Was cooking food?
Yes.
Okay.
So when he walked in, the one he carried, there's a little leakage.
It was leaking?
Yes.
Okay.
So in the process, knocking for these people to open so that he can supply them.
Okay.
That was where the fire magnet.
When asked about efforts to stamp out the menace of oil bunkering in the vicinity, as this is not the first time a tragedy like this is occurring, he explains that it's out of his purview.
OSPAC is just to protect life and property. The area is that where we always say, give us information if you see where they store these things, so that we cannot come and say, come and evacuate it out of this place. But they will not give you such information because they believe that they are all looking for their daily bread.
Some of the neighbors and relatives of the victims claim they've been warning against the illicit activities.
It's like I'm disturbing them, not for them to doing that business here. But for now, if people can help, for them to stop it finally, for them not to do this type of thing again, because I'm not in support of them. That's why all of them hated me.
It's not good to embarrass us or it put us in the problem we will not go face off. As this in that now, isn't that a problem?
It's a problem.
So you have to tell your people, if doing this type of thing, tell them to stop. Nobody were hungry, they killed.
In December of 2023, a pipeline explosion in Omoko killed 19 people who are believed to have been tampering with the pipeline, while another explosion at Abeji, also in Onelga, killed about 100 others. This worrying trend is cause for concern, and it's not yet clear how the government will handle the situation. Charles Opurum, Channels Television News.
The news at 10 continues now as we head over to our Abuja studios where Gloria Umezuke is standing by to take us through. Hello, Gloria. Over to you.
Well, many thanks, Anne. And to judicial matters now. Justice Njideka Nwosu Iheme of the FCT High Court has sentenced the husband of late gospel singer, Mr. Osinachi Peter Nwachukwu, to death by hanging. Justice Nwosu Iheme found him guilty of culpable homicide, resulting in the death of the deceased on April 8, 2022. The judge sentenced Mr. Nwachukwu to death after the court held that the prosecution had proven the burden of proof placed on it by the law and subsequently found the defendant guilty. Mr. Nwachukwu was arraigned on the 3rd of June 2022 by the Office of the Attorney General of the Federation on a 23-count charge bordering on culpable homicide, punishable by death, criminal intimidation, cruelty to children, criminal intimidation of children, spousal battery, among others. Before sentencing the defendant, counsel to Mr. Nwachukwu, Reginald Wali, pleaded with the court to be lenient in its judgment, while the prosecuting counsel, Adirunke Imala, urged the court to give force to the law as stipulated. Justice Nwosu Iheme subsequently sentenced Mr. Nwachukwu to death by hanging on count 1, while he was sentenced to 2 years imprisonment each on counts 2, 3, 8, 9, 12, 13, and 18. In the meantime, Justice Iyang Ekwo of the Federal High Court, Abuja, has ordered businesswoman and socialite Mrs. Aisha Achimogu to appear before the Economic and Financial Crimes Commission, EFCC, on Tuesday, April 29, 2025, to answer questions regarding an ongoing investigation. The judge also directed that she must appear before the court on Wednesday, April 30, 2025. The order was made in a ruling in respect of a suit filed by Achimogu against several law enforcement agencies. In its response to Achimogu's application, the EFCC's counsel, Ekele Iheanacho, informed the court of a counter-affidavit deposed to by one of its investigators, Mr. Chris Odofin, outlining the circumstances leading to her invitation. In the affidavit, Mr. Odofin disclosed that Mrs. Achimogu is under investigation for alleged conspiracy, obtaining money by false pretense, money laundering, corruption, and possession of property reasonably suspected to have been acquired through unlawful means. Mrs. Achimogu had initially honored the Commission's invitation on February 12, 2024, during which she made a written statement and was subsequently granted administrative bail through her lawyer and surety, Mr. Darlington Ozurumba. The case continues on Wednesday, April 30, 2025, with Mrs. Achimogu expected to report to the EFCC on Tuesday as directed by the court. Now, 10 district church councils under the umbrella of the Evangelical Church winning All Ekwa have applauded Governor Inuwa Yahaya of Gombe State over a cash donation of 10 million naira made to 5 families who lost their loved ones in the Easter Day tragedy in Biliri local government area of Gombe State. The councils appreciated the governor for pledging to foot the bills of persons who are still on admission, just as he ordered the release of individuals held in police custody over the incident.
These are clerics from the 10 district church councils under the Evangelical Church Winning All in Gombe State on a sympathy visit to the victims of the April 21st Biliri Easter incident, who are on admission at the Federal Teaching Hospital as well as Specialist Hospital in Gombe.
Allah ya karfafa zuciyarku ko da kuke faman jinya dauko wannan kai wannan da sauransu muna muku fata Allah ya kara muku hikima.
The clerics, after praying for the victims, make some cash donations. The clerics, who appreciated Governor Inuwa Yahaya for showing exemplary leadership during the trying moment, stressed the need to avert a reoccurrence.
I want to take this time to really express our joy over the visit of our able governor, Alhaji Muhammad Inuwa Yahaya. We really appreciate, because immediately after the incident, he took his time, went round, saw the incident for himself, and then identified with the families. He doesn't stop there. He supported them. And when we heard that, we were so happy, and that is leadership.
The clerics also demand justice for both Christians and Muslims under such circumstances, saying the carefully knit tapestry of peace and unity of Gombe State should not be tampered with.
We went to the police commissioner and introduced ourselves and also expressed our dissatisfaction over the incident, and called on the government and all security agencies to take, control over situations like this, because the issue is getting out of hand. We are getting tired and we are losing confidence in the government.
On their part, the Tangali Community Development Association have declared 14 days of mourning over the tragedy, voicing their displeasure and misgivings over a cycle of what they believe to be a system of marginalization and suppression.
In Tangala land, we don't have a voice. Today we have a voice. We will not close our eyes, close our mouth, close our ears to these things happening the way it has been happening in the past. Enough is enough. We are law-abiding citizens. It's only because when we are provoked, and if you are annoyed, you have no alternative than to react.
As investigation into the tragedy continues, the Gombe State Police Command has vowed to arraign the truck driver for reckless driving and other offenses.
Well, still ahead on the news at 10, Nigeria's non-oil exports record strong growth, hit $1.79 billion in first quarter of 2025. Well, that's in business news. So join us again. Welcome back. You're still watching the news at 10, coming to you live on Channels Television. The coalition of civil society organizations concerned with security, democracy and the rule of law in Nigeria is asking the British government to collaborate with Nigerian authorities to ensure a comprehensive investigation into the alleged illegal activities of Major Micah Polo, who is accused of procuring weapons for a prominent traditional ruler in Delta State. The convener of the group, Mr. Gabriel Wabu, in a petition presented to the British High Commissioner in Abuja, says efforts must be made to trace the origins of the firearms and ammunition recovered while ensuring that similar incidents do not occur in the future.
We have submitted a letter to the High Commissioner of the British Embassy, and that is an acknowledgement copy of that letter. And what is the content of this letter? The letter is showing, because the DSS, the Department for State Security Services, about 3 days ago, made a catchment of arrests of some persons who were in possession of AK-47s, several assault rifles, arms and ammunition that have never been seen before. It's a very huge positive achievement, done by the State Security Service and the security operatives in Nigeria. And one of the principal suspects, allegedly, is a major, in the British Army.
Well, that's it from the nation's capital. It's over now to Will Ibong in Lagos for business news.
Thank you. Millicent, a big boost for Nigeria's economy as non-oil exports hits $1.79 billion in the first quarter of 2025, a 24.75% jump from $1.43 billion in the same period last year, and that's according to the Nigerian Export Promotion Council, NEPC. The NEPC's Executive Director, Mrs. Noye Ayeni, who made this known during a media briefing, said the growth shows Nigeria's economy is becoming less reliant on crude oil, with agriculture, manufacturing and solid expensive minerals driving the surge. She also describes the U.S. 14% trade tariff as a chance for Nigeria to focus on adding value to its exports and boost global competitiveness. And to make transactions more smoother, the Central Bank of Nigeria, CBN, has announced significant revisions to the documentation requirements for transactions through the Pan-African Payment and Settlement System, PAPS, effective April 28, 2025. The changes aim to simplify cross-border transactions and boost intra-African trade. For low-value transactions up to $2,000 for individuals and $5,000 for corporates, only basic KYC and AML documents are required. Transactions above these thresholds will require full documentation as per the CBN's Foreign Exchange Manual. Authorized dealer banks can now source foreign exchange from PAPS settlements from the Nigerian markets, bypassing the CBN. Now let's turn our attention to the aviation sector. Nigeria Civil Aviation Authority, NCAA, has announced that airports operating without valid permits will face sanctions starting January 1, 2026. According to NCAA's Director of Aerodrome and Airspace Standards, Godwin Balang, only a few of the 92 airstrips listed have valid permits and called for better cooperation between NCAA and the Ministry of Aviation. NCAA's Director General, Chris Najomo, said the agency is creating tailored regulations to support aviation growth while maintaining safety in line with the minister's 5-point agenda. That's the sound of the closing gong at the Nigerian Exchange, rung today by the Minister of Industry, Trade and Investment, Jumoke Oduwole. The minister commends the NGX for its role in stabilizing the economy and attracting foreign investments, adding that the capital market remains a priority for the ministry. She also disclosed that the ministry has a set target of $6 million to be raised from portfolio and foreign direct investments. From there, we delve in to see the highlights of the performance of the equities market, which kicked off the first trading day of the week in the green, boosted largely by positive sentiments in the consumer goods sector. Here is John Mekwa with the details.
Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the stock market reports. Well, a recovery at intraday sustained to the close of trade. That's the story at the NGX today. So we see the oil share index is up 0.35%. And yes, we did regain this level at intraday, sustained it to the close of trade today, and also 228 billion naira added to the market cap. So we close at 66.693 trillion naira. The sectors tells us more about this. We see banking contributing to that. UBA gain, GT Code, they still have the good vibes around them after the good dividends that investors are still enjoying from GT Code. So we see banking up 1.31%. Consumer goods did even much better. So Nigerian breweries, for instance, has been surging since last week. Dangote Sugar is also adding to that, and so we see that counter is up 2.38%. On the flip side, however, Aradel lost 49 naira, and that drove the oil and gas counter down 2.87%. Looking at the full gas, we get a better picture of the performance of the big guys in the banking counter. So we talked about GTCO. So you see them, they drove that counter, that positive sentiment around the counter. Good dividends, investors are still testifying and also attracting more investors. And the others are mostly mixed at the close of trade. But the first trading day of this week, we have the bull back.
And that's a wrap on business. It's back to Anne for the rest of the news at 10.
Welcome back. Outside our shores, Spain has declared a state of emergency after massive power cuts hit large parts of the country and Portugal, causing widespread disruption. The Prime Minister of Portugal, Luis Montenegro, says that there was no indication that the power cuts was caused by a cyber attack. Here's Simon Puse with more international news around the world in 5.
Good evening and welcome to the Channel's studios here in London with your international news around the world in 5. Russian President Vladimir Putin has announced a temporary ceasefire in the war in Ukraine. The Kremlin has said the ceasefire will run from the morning of the 8th of May until the 11th of May, which coincides with victory celebrations to mark the end of World War II. In a statement, it said Mr. Putin declared the ceasefire based on humanitarian considerations. The Kremlin announced a similar 30-hour truce over Easter, but while both sides reported a dip in fighting, they both accused each other of hundreds of violations. The latest announcement comes during what the US has described as a very critical week for Russia-Ukraine peace talks. A massive power cut has hit parts of Spain and Portugal. The mayor of Madrid has warned people to stay off the roads and only call the emergency services if it's truly urgent. Shops and restaurants in the Spanish capital were plunged into darkness. Spanish power operator Red Eléctrica said there are blackouts across the country. In Portugal, police say traffic lights are not working and the metro in Lisbon and Porto is closed. Spain's national railway company says the country's entire national electricity grid was cut off at 12:30 local time. Play was suspended at the Madrid Open 2 due to the power outage currently affecting the Spanish capital and surrounding region. Cardinals will meet next month in a secret conclave to elect the next pope, that's according to the Vatican. The closed-door meeting will start inside the Sistine Chapel on the 7th of May and will involve some 135 cardinals from across the world. It follows the death of Pope Francis, who died at the age of 88 on Easter Monday, and whose funeral was held on Saturday. There is no timescale as to how long it will take to elect the next pope, but the previous two conclaves, held in 2005 and 2013, lasted just 2 days. A Vatican spokesperson said cardinals will take part in a solemn mass at St. Peter's Basilica, after which those eligible to vote will gather in the Sistine Chapel for the secretive ballot. At least 68 African migrants have been killed in a U.S. airstrike on a detention center in Houthi-controlled northwestern Yemen. That's according to the armed group's TV channel. Al Masirah reported that another 47 migrants were injured, most of them critically, when the center in Sadr province was bombed. It posted graphic footage showing multiple bodies covered in the rubble of a destroyed building. There was no immediate comment from the US military, but it came hours after US Central Command announced that its forces had hit more than 800 targets since President Donald Trump ordered an intensification of the air campaign against the Houthis. 25 people have been arrested in early morning raids across France in response to a wave of coordinated attacks on prisons and the homes of prison officers in April. Raids took place across the country on Monday, including the capital Paris, Marseille and Bordeaux in the south and the city of Lyon. French Justice Minister Gérald Darmanin has suggested the attacks are the work of gangs who are retaliating against a new government crackdown on drug trafficking. The most serious incidents took place over the course of 5 nights earlier this month, with vehicles being set alight and 2 prisons being targeted by gunfire in what Darmanin described as terrorist attacks. And a study in 8 countries, including the UK and the US, suggests that people who eat lots of ultra-processed foods may be at greater risk of dying early. Processed meats, biscuits, fizzy drinks, ice cream, and some breakfast cereals are examples of UPFs, which are becoming increasingly common in diets worldwide. The studies looked at surveys of people's diets and a date on deaths from 8 countries: Australia, Brazil, Canada, Chile, Colombia, Mexico, the UK, and the US.
Our studies are a variety of limitations, but one of the advantages is that we take complete control over people's food environments and we can measure exactly what they eat. We're giving them very simple instructions. Just eat as much or as little as you like. You shouldn't be trying to gain weight or lose weight. One study is not going to answer all the questions that we need to answer. We need a lot more research in this area to address not just the obesity question, but the variety of other conditions that diets high in ultra-processed foods are linked with. So this is just the first piece of the puzzle.
And that's your international news around the world in 5. Now back to the Channel's studios in Lagos.
Thank you, Simon. And away from our shores, still out within our shores, the Federal Capital Territory, the FCT High Court in Abuja, today dismissed an application filed by the former governor of the Central Bank of Nigeria, Godwin Emefiele, seeking to reclaim a vast estate in the city comprising 753 duplexes and apartments, which has already been forfeited to the federal government. Justice Jude Onwebuzie ordered the final forfeiture of the estate located at Plot 109, Cadastral Zone CO9 in Gombe district in Abuja, measuring 150,462.84 square meters. Mr. Emefiele contended with the entire forfeiture process and was conducted without his knowledge and alleged the AFCC published the interim forfeiture notice in an obscure section of the Punch newspaper, making it very difficult for him to respond timely. Let's head to the world of sports where Chris Ellens is standing by.
Thank you and welcome to Sports News. Imo State Governor Senator Hope Uzodimma has charged athletes representing the state at the forthcoming National Sports Festival to aim for top honors and bring home gold medals. Governor Uzodimma made this call at the Government House Owerri while receiving Unity Torch for the multi-sports competition, which is scheduled to hold from May 16th to 18th in Ogun State. The governor urges them to make Imo proud by emerging as one of the leading states in the competition.
2025 National Sports Festival.
Liverpool have announced that they will celebrate their Premier League title triumph with a 15-kilometer trophy parade around the city on Monday, May 26. The parade on the bank holiday Monday after the final game of the season against Crystal Palace will enable players and fans to celebrate in a way that was denied them by COVID pandemic in 2020. Liverpool's Champions League trophy parade in 2019 drew an estimated crowd of 750,000, and a similar number are expected to mark the club's record equaling 20th league title. The parade is scheduled to start at 2:30 p.m. and estimated to last between 3 and 5 hours. Arsenal have been boosted ahead of their Champions League semi-final first leg against Paris Saint-Germain, with Mikel Merino and Ben White returning to training. Both players missed the 2-2 draw with Crystal Palace owing to injury, but were in the open training session today ahead of the last four clash on that's tomorrow at the Emirates Stadium. Arsenal manager Mikel Arteta said Ghanaian midfielder Thomas Partey will not be available for the match because he picked up 2 yellow cards in the previous games. There was no sign of Ricardo Calafiori or Jorginho, with both players out with longer-term issues. Thus, sports is back to you, Anne.
Thank you, Chris. And the main news again. Vice President Kashim Shettima has described the defection of Delta State Governor Sheriff Oborewori, his predecessor Ifeanyi Okowa, and others into the fold of the All Progressives Congress as a political tsunami of unimaginable proportions. The Vice President was speaking today in Asaba, the Delta State capital, when he, alongside other APC bigwigs, formally received the Delta State Governor and others into the APC. And that's the news at 10 tonight. Thank you so much for watching. I'm Anne Mwawadu. Have a wonderful night rest and stay safe.